If you've been wanting to get back into gaming, but you just haven't had, as much spare time as you used to have, or some cases, just as much money to dedicate towards games because they become a little bit of a luxury, here's how I got back into them. I would really recommend getting into retro handheld gaming. Specifically, I'll talk about my devices as a Trimui Smart Pro. I really recommend it because not only is it easy for beginners to get into, but for most of these devices, you're looking to spend less than $100 or less, basically. So I will add a little bit of an asterisk here. Obviously, there is a whole situation with the tariffs and stuff in the US right now. So if you are US based, just know that is going to have a little bit of your mileage may vary effect. I know if it comes from certain countries, it may balloon the cost of the handheld you're trying to get. But I think so far, at least for the device that I just showed you, I have been able to find places that still ship it from the US where you could still find it as the time of this recording for a good price, but just know that you may have to keep your eye out for a good deal or just be patient. Now granted, of course, everyone always talks about emulation, which of course, emulation that does bring down the cost a lot, obviously, and there's a whole rabbit hole there that I could get into, but I obviously can't legally recommend that you go out and don't download ROMs and stuff like that. You should own the games that you're playing. But because I think a lot of the game collecting has gone so expensive nowadays, if you were looking to play certain games from a vintage console, you'd have to invest into the console, a couple $100 for a game, especially if it was more obscure and not readily available and stuff like that. And you also lose out on the quality of life features that these handhelds provide you. So modern emulation will give you a way to fast forward through games, which is super handy for RPGs. Save states, which is also handy for RPGs, but really all games benefit from save states. But I understand if you have a lot of concerns with the emulation part of it, I can only tell you so much about it. If you know, you know. So I think I'll highlight instead the two aspects I liked about these devices, which is the community behind them. So people are always developing features for these retro handhelds. I, for example, get options between a couple of operating systems, but I use one called CrossMix. So CrossMix comes with a couple of cool things. It has a media player for your MP3s if you lost your iPod Classic, I'm sorry. But it also lets you have this app that lets you stream games directly from your computer. So if you have a computer with something that's more intense, but you want to play comfortably from your bed, you can low-key kind of do a Nintendo Switch situation where it'll stream it directly to your little device. But it also has another app called Portmaster, which not only gives you access to a bunch of free and open source games, so in case you're concerned about emulation, there you go, but you may also own games already on the computer, and it may have a port on Portmaster. I think Android-based retro handhelds have their own thing called RetroArch, but I know for Portmaster, my Trimui is a Linux-based console, so if a game has a Linux port somewhere online, there's a pretty good chance I'll be able to play it on my Trimui. And it is these communities that I really want to emphasize because, again, things are constantly developing. I think it's a really exciting time to get into the hobby despite, everything being wishy-washy with the tariffs. Just be patient, get into it when you see a good deal, because I think right now, similar to how people would get into more obscure movies and music that, people glossed over when it came out, right now, the ease of access to emulation through these retro handhelds, because it's just so easy to play games that we might have glossed over when they came out. I think that means that we're also in a really exciting time where people are going to bring up these hidden gems and either use them in their own work, their own games that they're making, or just highlight them and show people hey, we kind of missed out on this. And I think the ease of access through these retro handhelds is just really going to push this type of scene. I think it's just barely emerging really on the past couple of years. But overall, of course, it's real fun to be able to play Space Cadet Pinball and then also community hacks of Pokemon games at the checkout line at Target. So again, this is my Trimui Smart Pro. I got it for just retro gaming, and it does let me access a couple of things that you wouldn't expect, a little bit of PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64, Dreamcast. Nothing heavier than that, but I think that's just kind of a bonus, honestly. I got mine for under $50 for sure. But in any case, I just wanted to bring up this emerging community of retro handhelds. But I'll see you guys in the next video.